Hello and welcome to another edition, a very special edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. We're in the P T Knitwear bookstore as usual, in the podcast studio in the front. It's a great bookstore. They have a nice cafe in the back and terrific events. You should go check it out. With me today, playing the theme song in person as opposed to digitally, is Mr. Fred Argenziano, the music director of the Bitter Pill Collective. Behind the engineering board is my wife, Jill Vinitsky, who would prefer not to be in the picture. So everybody welcome. I think it's going to be a really cool show. My original guest couldn't make it, and it's Poetry Weekend Festival on Governor's Island. Thank you, Fred. And so I was kind of having trouble finding guests, so I figured, you know what? My first thought was I would just read a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, hey, me and Fred have been working really hard the past year putting the poetry and music thing together. And I said, well, it's a chance to kind of promote what we've been doing. And it's been a great collaboration. I'm really excited about it. It's called the Bitter Pill Collective. For the most part, it's been mostly me and Fred. His nephew, Evan Hilsinger, joins us sometimes on lead guitar. And we're actually thinking about looking for a bass and then maybe percussion to make it an actual collective. Anyway, Fred, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Why don't we start off with a song called Irene, Irene. I was trying to go for kind of like an old kind of folky tune, maybe almost along the lines of an Irish folk tune. And that's what I described to Fred, and he came up with the music you're about to hear. Irene, Irene, where did you go? The song ended long ago. Mixed with regret, the melody lingered with ringing tones. Love in melancholy, a troubling sequence. Irene, Irene, you once laughed and smiled, profile of you in oil paint, droplets of color left on linoleum floor, a reminder of your pose, captured on canvas for prosperity's sake. Irene, Irene, I look for you in taverns and cafes. Your scent still alive in mind like flowers in a vase. Alas, you're gone, it seems I don't find you in the flesh. So I hold on to you in songs sung and art now hung. Irene, Irene, it's all I have left. Irene, Irene, my heart is bereft. Irene, Irene, please come home. Irene, Irene, Irene. All right, that went pretty smooth. So sometimes when we rehearse this, I tell Fred, like, I don't sound like William Shatner on this, do I?
Not much.
No, I don't know why. I always feel like, am I being cornball a little bit? But I don't know. And I have to thank Fred for the line bereft, because I think I originally said my heart is broken or something, and you said bereft is better. So we do birthday parties and weddings, if you want to hire us, and bar mitzvahs, yeah, and bas mitzvahs, and any kind of mitzvah you have. This is the Lower East Side, after all. The next one we're going to do is called The Boulevard, and it came to my head that there's so many great songs with imagery or about being on the boulevard. And they tend to be, like a Lou Reedy kind of thing, kind of talking about the seedy underbelly of a city. And this is my way of acknowledging that. Let's take it away, Fred. The Boulevard. I went down to the Boulevard, the one I heard about in song, about they filled with dreams and the lover who fell in their arms and disappeared like it never happened, and the preacher who stood tall on his throne and preached like his life depended on it, to the passers-by who had little time or interest in listening to what he was espousing. The Boulevard, where you can't buy hope at competing dollar stores or news at the now shuttered newsstand, with free art on its gate that was sprayed on from a can no one bothers to look at anymore, where cash is still king but in short supply, and there's no credit left when the bills are piled high. It can be hard to walk the day on with a smile. On the boulevard I stood, looking around my surroundings, in front of boarded storefronts, and my fellow man lying down on the ground, with just blankets and a few possessions stuffed in supermarket bags. Commuters making their way home after a double shift, and there's just no ending in sight, and you're too darn tired to fight. This boulevard filled with stories, mostly hard ones that'll knock you around until you're blurry, that sounds better in a rock and roll song or on a movie soundtrack. But here on the boulevard, the music is the everyday noise everyone just puts up with. It's just part of the background. And there's more tragedy than a Shakespearean play. Alas, we are all actors trying hard to uplift ourselves from the grime and the squalor, because the boulevard is not going to let up for nobody. All right. It's okay to clap for yourself and your colleague. Next one is Dream of What Was. I don't know if I have a story for this one. Oh, I do. It's underlined. I was taking I was emptying my pockets at night before I went to bed, and I had some coins in it, and I threw them in this, it's actually, I didn't tell you this, Fred, it's actually a duck-shaped ashtray that I made in shop class in middle school. I still have. It's chipped, and I'm not that crafty, but I think I kind of like it. Anyway, I noticed there was a couple of buttons in the coins, mixed in with the coins, and I just thought of that, like buttons mixed in a coin jar, and I came up with the line, and memories get mixed like buttons in a coin jar, and then I made a poem out of it from that one line.
Which is a lot better than buttons stuck in a duck tray.
That's true. That would be harder to say. And people would be like, what the hell's a duck tray? I want one of those. All right, take it away, Fred. I don't always play the notes clean anymore. My hands are worn and no longer lithe. And the words stumble out because life has been hard, and memories get mixed like buttons in a coin jar. Friends have come and gone, and many have died. I sing about them all without really trying, on old creaky stages that are soon to be torn down. I carry my case home that has gotten heavier with time, and struggle to get the key into the door's lock because it's bent and ready to crack. The door opens into the dark, lonely boarding house room, made more so now that you were gone. I lay my guitar down with care like it's a baby, my only possession of worth in a world full of plenty. I turn on the lamp with its bulb that flickers and I look around at my bare surroundings. It's late in the night and I'm flat out fucking tired. So I lay my weary body down on a bed that is warped and crooked. I'll dream of what was, not what lies ahead. Because it just seems like a better option at this stage of my life. Thanks. All right. I do tend to write a lot about a couple of things. I mean, music has definitely crept into a lot of my poems. Of course, both Fred and I have been in bands our whole life. I should say that we've been friends for a really long time, since the late 70s, and we were both drummers forever. So we didn't cross paths too much as far as in collaboration. We did a few things here and there, but for the most part, Fred was in his thing and I was in my thing. And then, I don't know, Fred, what, 15, 20 years ago, or 10, 15 years ago, you played guitar more than the drums?
No, I've always played the guitar.
Right, but I mean...
But it was just in the past 5 years or so that I spent a lot more time devoted to it.
All right, cool. So it almost coincides with, you know, I haven't been in a regular working bands in maybe 10 years. A lot of reasons why. And then I'd say about 7 or 8 years ago, I started writing poetry. But I would say the last 5 years have been the most productive. So it's really funny that I moved from the drums to writing poetry, and Fred, you moved from the drums to concentrating on the guitar. And I think we were both probably itching to get out there and do our creative thing. And somehow, you know, last year actually, I decided to put my poetry into a poetry contest, and they said you could do music for it. And I went to Fred to say, hey, you want to put some music to some of my poetry? And I got to say, every time I send Fred something, it's like magic. What he picks to do with it. It's, some of them are your compositions, and some of them are arrangements from other songs, correct?
No pressure here, right? Just
yeah.
The magic thing has got me a little nervous.
Well, it's been magic for like almost. I think we have almost 15 pieces put together, or close to it. Yeah, and it's been magic. I think there's one recent one that maybe it's me that's struggling with. We're not ready to do out live yet, but every one I feel like you've kind of nailed what I was going for. So it's really cool. But also the dream of what was, and a lot of these other poems, you'll see a common theme of disenfranchised people, people with mental illness. I mentioned the music, but in this case, it was a musician who was getting old. His wife had died, and you know, his life is getting tough, and so a lot of that, a lot of loneliness. So I guess you can say that I don't write about rainbows and unicorns too much, or fields of daffodils. But I don't know, it comes easier for me to do that, to write about the tough parts, aspects of life. Somehow pain is more interesting than the opposite of pain. The next one is called Thoughts of Her, and I really don't remember where this one came from. Some of these things just kind of come out. And anyway, so let's go for that one, Fred. She had quiet beauty. I strummed a loud guitar and nearly lost my mind when she sat at the bar. The chords were wrong, I was distracted, and I messed up the song, but the band played on. My head swirled with thoughts of her and a vision of a dance and the start of a new romance. The set felt too long, one tune too many. Would she get up and leave and take with her any chance we could meet? So I could sing her song, a love poem, to the woman with the soulful brown eyes. The final chords died out and she was gone. I went searching in the dark of night. But the streets were empty and she was nowhere in sight. And my heart sunk 10 feet under. I guess it just wasn't my night. We did a sound check, a bunch of sound checks, but I didn't sound check the drum. I hope it wasn't too loud. I have to get used to reading and playing a drum at the same time. I'm not that good at what do you call it, multitasking. All right. Well, you know, I was a chef for almost 20 years. I was able to multitask as a chef. Next is depth of emotion. This is a friend of mine or somebody I knew from the 90s when I used to, we're going to talk about this later, but I used to book musicians to play for people living with AIDS in healthcare facilities. And I met some great musicians. I saw some great shows that had real meaning because they were being played in a small, community room in a hospital or in a long-term care facility. And Howard Fishman was one of the people I met back then. He's a great singer-songwriter, but he's a really good writer and author. He last year or recently came out with a book about Connie Converse, a folk singer. It's called To Anyone Who Ever Asks, The Life, Music, and Mystery of Connie Converse. It's a great book. And there was one scene that really struck a chord with me. It was really about, separating yourself and not feeling like you fit in or you're not in your place where you're supposed to be. So I wrote this. I have it as depth of emotion, but it could also be called Out on the Ledge. I'm not sure which title is better, but take it away, Fred. Oh, that's right. This is my. I get to start this one. That's right. All right. The narrow ledge was a cold and an unforgiving, precarious place. She took a long drag of her cigarette as she balanced herself and let it go out into the dark and heavy city air. Above the traffic on Broadway and the people walking by, oblivious that she was there. She had removed herself outside of company, separate in her trance as the waning hours of the night drifted, and clouds shielded the light from the moon, casting no shadows nor illumination on her lonely state, and stirred her inner thoughts that hardly ever rested. There would be words typed on paper that would become songs. But for now, she was just outside, looking into a room of friends with whom she didn't feel she belonged. There really wasn't that kind of place for this poet, whose depth of emotion and intellect was so evident and so very, very strong. Where did you go to, songstress? Artist so prescient and fragile, you left behind your legacy, papers and keepsakes in a file cabinet. that would one day tell your story and give details only imagined in your songs that will live on forevermore. Nice. Okay. The next one is called Promised Land. Many years ago, I just thought it'd be funny to come up with a name. If I was a blues singer, what would my blues singer name be? And I came up with Little Blind Junior, basically taking the three things that are prefixes and suffix. Did I say that right? Anyway, so this is about a blues guy named Little Blind Junior. Little Blind Junior, he came back to town riding high in a shiny new Cadillac. He dressed in a coat of fur, woman, no, make that 2 on each arm. Left town broke. And that was diamonds that shine. He belted out his songs, written with blood and pain, of those before him, most who never made it. Deep roots once laid, planted with hope to be in a better place, break from the past. Little Blind Junior was his own man. He owed nothing to no one. Made his bed and always laid in it. He got up each day, a different town, each night. The same key, another dance, for $1 and a drink. It was salvation for a man who can make a stand and claim his stake in the promised land. In the promised land. All right, Little Blind Junior. The next one has, I had alluded to it earlier. We're on Orchard Street, as I said, and Rivington Street is really just a few blocks away. And when I was working for Life Beat Music Industry Fights AIDS, I would bring musicians to go to these places, hospitals and long-term care facilities. And there was a 200-bed long-term care facility just a few blocks from here. I may have talked about this in past episodes, and if you've heard it before, I'm sorry. But it's a story that has a lot of meaning to me, and this particular poem really hits home to me. When I read it, especially with the music that Fred came up with, I feel like I'm living that again. And there was a lot of pain. The AIDS crisis was probably at its peak at the time. It was mid-'90s, and the drugs were just starting to kind of take effect, but they weren't really perfected yet. And I saw a lot. Anyway, there was one resident who was at Rivington House that just, the image of him and who he was and his personality and character just feels really fresh in my mind. So this is dedicated to him. It's called Rivington House on Rivington Street. With his gloved hand, he smacked the plate-sized button, and the front door of the residence automatically opened, and he wheeled himself out the door and down the ramp and up the block to the park. It's not central, but it had trees and benches and sometimes pretty girls flitting by. It took him back when he was young and had game. But now he was stuck in his chair, watching life on the east side leave him behind. He didn't recognize anyone anymore, and he missed the old days. Hanging out on the street corner, drinking a Colt 45 and bragging with the crew. They are long gone, and Jimmy's corner bodega was now a fancy boutique. He quickly gulped down his Bustelo, afraid some well-meaning hipster would toss coins in his grind. And he didn't take handouts, at least not that way. Yeah, he lived on the government's dime, but not by choice. Not by choice. He made the best of it, living with AIDS in a long-term care facility. And despite the hanging beads and the colored lights and photos of his angel plastered on his wall, it was just a hospital room when you get down to it. It's been 8 years and he can't even remember how it came down to all of this. Or he was just really good at forgetting. He opened his sketchbook and drew gods and heroes and a place much better than this. Time was suspended as images filled the clouds and the pencil moved across the page. The minutes of the day chipped away. It was time to go back and wait in his room for the squeaky wheels of the cart to come down the hall and be served a plate of humility pills and a cup of juice to wash it down. All right. Thanks, Fred. Yeah. I heard I don't remember his name. I don't think he was really that popular of an artist. It was an early 60s artist, a black musician who was, at least in this instance, was playing a country song. I mean, that wasn't really unheard of. I mean, Ray Charles obviously put great country music records out, and starting from and pretty much being the man that invented soul music, and then doing country because he loved it and he grew up with it like a lot of other people did. And you had Charlie Pride, of course, mainly a country singer, but anyway, a lot of times Clarence Williams, Patches, right, and things like that. There were soul singers that wanted to do country just like country musicians want to do blues, or it's all part of the music landscape of this country. And anyway, I came up with this one. I hopped a freight train to soul country, the line the hobos rode when they didn't own a dime. It was just like I thought it would be, prettier than the one in song I heard on transistors walking down city streets, dreaming of the place where it all come from. I hopped off the rail as the steam hollered and coughed, and the old train slowed around the bend. The grass was tall and blue-green, and the sun shined hotter than hot, illuminating white clouds, dancing over fields of crops. And there was little of anything else in sight. I could hear strings plucked in cabins off the road that led directly to town, where you can trade what's in your pocket for a pop and a piece of peach pie. And singers belt out their hearts with everything they've got in the only tavern you'll find for miles. This place, where white plays side by side with black. As long as you've got something to say in the songs that you choose and sing. It ain't called country, nor the blues. It's just tradition passed down from legends and anyone who would take time to learn. It's generations of broken backs and calloused hands, and also the love of the simpler things in life that would have to sustain the country in your soul. All right. So the next one, well, there's a couple of things that go on with this. I mean, I went to New Paltz. I was only there for a year. New Paltz, upstate, surrounded by beautiful mountains and a really old school town. And since then, I've been up to Saugerties and Woodstock and areas like that, and Beacon and so on and so forth. And it always struck me as there are people that, you know, put down their stake and you know, in my case, if I had gone to New Paltz for the full 4 years or even dropped out and stuck around because I liked it up there, and 30, 40 years pass, I maybe would feel not so great about the people that come up from the city and kind of push their way around. So this one's called Mountain Town, and there's other elements of this that resonate with me and Fred as well. I'm not going to be specific. Life used to be easier, I tell you. Nowadays, it's just too damn cold. And the town is full of rich city folk who turn up their nose at a man in worn and tattered flannel. But damn it, I've been in this town since the 70s, when people around here actually cared. You know, back then it was free and easy, it seemed. And the mountains were a sight to behold. Yeah, we created sculptures, music, prose, built furniture, and cooked big pots of chili to share, and a cold pitcher of beer. Seems like everyone you ran into had something to say and a talent to display. I came to get educated and wound up dropping out, but I stuck around. Somehow bills got paid, with enough left for a party or two. Now, it's a loaf of white bread and jam and yesterday's coffee pot in the fridge. Oh, and a butter too I grew last summer. It's not exactly the high life, but it beats being locked up, which I've experienced a day or two in my days. But I'm too darn old to fight now. But not too old for opinions, that's for sure. Oh man, but I just wish Clara had made it. I guess she was committed once too often and found solace stepping in front of a speeding train. I was pissed, hurt, and angry for a while. Maybe because she was the only one who would make me laugh and who would put up with my shit for more than a day or two. But deep down, I understand. It was nice once. And now, it's just time passing and really not much more than that. All right. So we're getting towards the end of the show. And I'm really glad we did this, Fred.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I hope the listeners out there are enjoying this. And we don't have anything lined up. We've been doing some open mics and things like that. Actually, the great, fantastic poet George Wallace, who's so generous with his talent and so generous in collaboration, has invited me to read two of his poems and one of mine at his book release party, which is August 24th at Otto's Shrunken Head. So I'm honored and flattered to be doing that. And he was okay with Fred joining me on my piece and one of his pieces. So that's the next time I think we'll be doing something live in public, and notwithstanding maybe we'll probably do Mimsy Mac's open mic. It's Sundays at Freddy's at 3:00. It's every other Sunday, I think the first and third. It's a lot of fun. It's mostly musicians, occasionally other poets. So we may be there once or twice before the 24th. But anyway, it's been great having you, Fred. And I want to thank my wife, Jill, again for manning the switchboard, the engineering board.
You need to know that the whole time I'm playing, Jill is making funny faces at me.
I don't blame her, Fred. I mean, you just have that kind of face that...
Which is why he's looking out the window.
But I've been saying I was sleeping on it.
So hopefully you've been listening, or at least listened to at least one of the previous podcasts that I've done, Storytelling on Orchard Street. Anyway, Fred allowed me to use this piece that he put together for one of my poems called Her Life Now. It's when we do it live, it tends to be the closer, and now it became the opener for the show, and now it's going to be the closer for the show. You're going to hear the poem that is attached to it. This was a lot of fun for me because it's a little, well, you know, it stands within the framework of my poems in the sense that it's about misfits and outcasts. I do a lot of that, or people outside of the mainstream, or people with problems, like most of us, I guess, really. Some people just don't pretend they have one. So anyway, it's called Her Life Now, and it's about a woman who finally decided to let her freak flag fly high. Take it away, Fred. She gave up caring what others thought. After a lifetime of anxiety-induced inner turmoil, she needed some extra cash. It was getting expensive hiding her true nature. So she grew her beard out, almost a ruddy brown, like a Krylon can from 1979. It was pretty startling. A fleeny magical profile. She felt proud. She signed up for the side hustle in Coney Island. Sideshows by the seashore. For the locals, the dreamers, and the bored, who were just looking for a thrill out from underneath the hot summer sun. She felt kinship amongst her fellow outcasts and outsiders, who had left mainstream a long time ago and stopped trying to fit into a world not really meant for their kind. But when the spotlight was turned on and the show began and the barker welcomed the audience, the curtain was raised as they hit the stage. Life was on their terms, and nothing else mattered now. the thrills of oddity and curiosity on breathtaking display as the sun slowly went down. The show, it came to a close. Take a bow to the mad applause. Drop the curtain until the next show, where she and her kind will pass the time, because this is her new glorious life now. This is her new glorious life now. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure having you here. Well, not here. There's just 3 of us here. Out there, in your home, in your earbuds, your computer, wherever you listen to Storytelling on Orchard Street, being recorded in the P T Knitwear bookstore, 180 Orchard Street. Once again, I want to thank my esteemed colleague, music director for the Bitter Pill Collective, Mr. Fred Argenziano. I'd like to thank my wife, Jill Vinitsky, for manning the board, or woman in the board, or whatever you want to call it. I'd like to thank myself for writing such great poetry. Thank you, Pete. You did a great job. You're wonderful. And thank you all for listening. Hope you tune in to future episodes of Storytelling on Orchard Street. Have yourself a great day or night.